right, welcome to Fox Press Voices, and today we are joined by Reverend Kevan L. Waiters, author of Brother to Brother. Well, the book chronicles one family's journey through segregation, military service, health challenges, and personal sacrifice. It also raises important questions or topics about inclusivity, understanding, and our shared humanity. Reverend Waiters, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
All right, it is a privilege to us to have this important segment for this week at Fox Press Voices. Now, will lead us to the topic how your book tells a deeply personal family story. What surprised you most about how readers from completely different backgrounds connected with experiences you shared?
Well, one of the things that I feel the book, it covers so many genres in life. It covers from the military, it covers from segregation, it covers from growing up in the South, and it covers about the religious aspects of how God can be an important role in your life. And I was raised up in a family that we ate dinner at the dinner table. We had breakfast at the breakfast table, and we was able to communicate with one another. And it just taught us to be better people in society. So the book, I feel, gives us an opportunity to share with the world. When a family prays together, they stays together.
Oh, I love that segment. Indeed, we are also leaded where, remarkably similar to people of different races, different cultures, different walks in life in general, that has reached out to Fox Press Voices. And these details may be different, but the heart of the story and the heart of, the lessons are often the same.
Yes.
And now this leads us to the waiters family, as faced challenges that many communities have experienced in different forms. Do you believe storytelling has the power to bridge divided, or those people that need help to see themselves in someone else's journey?
Yes, I really do. When I look back at my family tree, my great grandfather was African, and my great grandmother was full blooded Cherokee. And I
Mhm.
learned how that those families united together, and now today, we're living their dreams. We are living the freedom that they was fighting for, to have for someone. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or
Mhm.
the contents of your character. It was important that you love God, and if you put God first in your life, all the things that people kind of throw at you, you were able to overcome them, no matter what it was, no matter racist words or languages that was being thrown, or rocks being thrown at us standing at the bus stop, or getting old books that already had the answers in them, and we was using paper bags for book covers. Um, it was just, the school buses that we was riding in was old buses that would be breaking down. But after all of that, we
Mhm.
still was able to overcome all of those challenges of integration and segregation until today, that makes us better people today than we would have ever been before. So I just thank God that He allowed me to come up in an era where we grew to learn one another, no matter what the color of your skin was. If you had the love for God in your life, He will make everything okay.
Well, in fact, when someone reads a personal story, they stop seeing labels and start seeing people. And that's where empathy begins. A story like Reverend Waiters can really take us into someone else's shoes for a moment. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the perspective. Now, growing up during segregation exposed you to society divided by barriers. How did those experiences shape your understanding of inclusion? The very hot topic for this episode and the importance of treating every person with dignity.
Well, my first 6 years of school, I went to an all-black school from the 12th through the first through the 12th grade. And in 1969, I received a letter, and they said, "Congratulations, you're going to South Middle School." And we all kind of started laughing. We're like, "Where is South Middle School?" In South Middle School, I was the only black student in my classroom. And so I learned that it wasn't the color of my skin or the color of their skin, it was the contents of their character. And it allowed me to make new friends, and it allowed me to be able to communicate with other people from other genders that I had never met before. And once you have established a friendship, and a true friend, no matter who they are, will be with you forever.
Oh, well, living through segregation also, I've experienced a lot of times taught me what exclusion feels like, but it also taught me the value of dignity. My parents, Reverend Kavan, taught us, I know you might have similar um, experiences that no matter how others treated us, we should never lose our respect for ourselves and for others. You know,
Mhm.
and dignity isn't something that should be earned. It's something every human being possesses. So now, one of the themes in Brother to Brother is caring for loved ones through illness. How can health challenges create opportunities for greater compassion and understanding among people of different walks of life?
Well, I really believe that sometimes we don't understand why God places us in certain situations. And my brother, who in turn had served in Vietnam as an Army veteran, served in Vietnam, and he was sprayed with the Agent Orange, which attacked his kidneys, and he ended up on dialysis. And they told him that you need a transplant, that you're not going to be able to live very much longer on dialysis. And he was like, well, because he really didn't understand what had happened and why he was on dialysis. But then once they found out, then it's okay. Look, let's at ways on how we can treat it. And then they asked him, had he ever considered asking his siblings to see would they be interested in donating a kidney to him? And as growing up, I put being a donor on my driver's license, but I really didn't know what that really meant, until I experienced it myself. And when my brother asked me, the day that my brother asked me, he said, "I need a favor from you." And I said, "What do you need?" He said, "Would you consider donating me a kidney?" And I was like, "Sure, no problem." And still, all honesty, I didn't know what a donor had to go through to be a donor. But once you go through that and you realize what you have to do to be a donor, I think what the experience, it will be able to help educate other people about what it is to be a donor. And see, some of the things is that you need to make sure that your body stays in good shape. You need to make sure that you don't put any kind of bad substance in your body so that your organs are in good shape, and that you need to be able to have the right mindset to be willing to donate your organ. A lot of people were saying to me, "I wouldn't do that, and what happens is my kidneys fail." And I says, "I'm not worried about that because God is in control." And so when you allow God to control your life, and you allow to be obedient to God, because God spoke to me the same day that my brother asked me. And when he hung up the phone, the Lord spoke to me just like we're talking right now. And he says, "You're the donor." And I was like,
You're the
"What?"
donor.
So it was like, he already had anointed me. He had already prepared me. And I didn't know all the things that he was going to do along the way to even make it even more
Mhm.
significant that I was going to be the donor for my brother.
But Reverend Kevin here is the donor. So, when we begin with our shared humanity, conversation become less confrontational and more constructive. So that's where real understanding begins. Every parent worries about their children, every family experiences challenges. So I believe we spend so much discussing what separates us that we sometimes forget how much we have in common, and we just like witness people come together in extraordinary ways, just as how Reverend Kevin Waiters here has become the donor. So now many conversations about inclusivity focus on differences. So your book often highlights common ground. Why do you think recognizing shared experiences is so important in today's world?
I truly believe that if we're able to share a lot of experiences that we're dealing with in life, and so many people have so many similar scenarios. We have people that, have sugar diabetes, they have heart diseases, they have cancer, they need transplants. And if we're able to share what we have experienced in our lives and how we was able to get through some of those things that we experienced, I think that it makes the world a better place, because now that they can see that, someone that you can touch, and say, wait a minute, because I know with my mother, she was 75 years old, and she was like, son, the Lord I serve is not going to put me through to have two sons on the operating table. And I said, mother, I said, I can't explain it, but God has a reason that he wants us to do this transplant. And she says to me, son, and I was 43 years old, and she said, son, you just a baby Christian. I've been knowing the Lord a whole lot longer than you have. But you know what? God won her over too. So now my mother is in our corner. God has showed her that, you know what? I'm gonna take care of your sons. Even though I'm gonna have both of them on the operating table, I'm gonna take care of them. And so that gave her a better understanding of the miracles of God and how God can bless your family. And no matter how firm you may be with your spirit, God has a way to even improving that perspective of it also.
Well, I really love that highlight for today's episode by Reverend Kevon Waiters. So now this leads to your family story spans generations. So what lessons about acceptance and belonging have been passed down through your family that remain relevant today?
Well, my great grandfather purchased 200 acres in 1875, and we still have those 200 acres today, 150 years later. And my grandfather was born on the ranch in 1877. And so my father was born in 1921. So, and I was just thinking, I was just preaching about it the other day. There was a tree that was on a pecan tree that was on the property when my great grandfather purchased it. And it was there when my grandfather was born, which was 149 years ago. And now today, that same pecan tree has weathered all the storms and all of the hurricanes and everything it has transported in South Carolina. And it's still producing pecans today. And it's over 175 years old. And so that just a foundation of how our family has been rooted in on what a true meaning of a family. I'm the ninth of 11, 6 boys and 5 girls. And
Mhm.
we put our feet under the table every day, 3 times a day. And my mother served us meals 3 times a day. We prayed 3 times a day. We did our grace before we had our meals. No one had any kind of uh, electronic devices, but that was a time for us to fellowship and share with one another. And this is today, we're trying to bring those things back, those values back to the families, about the family that prays together stays together.
There we go, guys. A family that prays together stays together. And of course, that act, we were taught to welcome others, to listen before judging, and to recognize that every person carries a story we may know nothing about. Those are just as important today as they were decades ago. And one lesson that stands out is simple: never underestimate the power of treating people with kindness. My family believed that everyone deserved respect regardless of their circumstances. So
Mhm.
now Thank you so much for that wonderful insight, Reverend Kavan. This will always lead us now to the act of, potentially donating a kidney, which seemed to be personal on your end. No, it represents an extraordinary act of selflessness. And what does that experience teach us about looking beyond labels and seeing the humanity in one another?
Well, I had I had always, like I said, I had always been willing to donate, but I never knew that, what the experience would actually be like. And so now that God has used me to be a vessel, to be a mission, to be a message to the world about how He can create miracles in your life. Not only did God make me a perfect match to my brother. And my brother was 10 years older than me. And he said that no, and the doctor said that the odds of a perfect match was 14 million to one. 14 million to one. And then not only that, God planted a third kidney in me. And see, a lot of people think that I was born with a third kidney, but I wasn't. The kidney was planted in me along the way of getting my brother healthy enough to do the transplant. So those two things alone are such a significant miracle in my life that God allowed me to be that vessel, allowed me to be that passenger, allowed me to be that messenger to tell the world that not only He's in the miracle working business, that He could plant a third kidney in me and I could give one to my brother and I can still live a healthy, normal, productive life. And
Oh.
that was 26 years ago. And I know that God is still looking out for me today.
Oh, that is always felt, you guys. With Fox Press Voices, we may not have been updating, keeping you posted with our personal matters, but I am one living testament towards Reverend Kavan Waiter's faith here. I am by manifesting still that I will be healed with what I am going through right now. If you may not notice, Fox Press Voices have been keeping off and on in touch with our segments for this month because that is because we're due to me as a host currently suffering with an illness. So, I had some prayers, thankfully, with Reverend Kavan. Thank you so much, Reverend, for, coming with my healing progress. That, your prayers, his prayers, guys, and encouragement has become handy with me as I take my recovery journey. So, putting that aside, we will now be routed to the question here that readers may come to this book expecting a story about illness or family hardship as well. Same as how I'm experiencing right now. But many leave talking about hope and connection. Was that intentional when writing the book?
Really, it was. It was kind of the thing. I guess one of the things God wants us to understand is that we have angels that's guarding you. We have guardian angels in our lives. And I really hadn't thought about some of the angels that God had placed in my life until I wrote the book. And then as I was writing, and when I was sitting down and I was like putting the names to my chapters, and I was sitting at my computer, and one of the chapters is called The Hitchhiking Angel. And at the time when it happened, I was like 21, 22 years old, and I didn't know that was an angel. But
Mm-hmm.
later on in my life, as when I was sitting down and I was writing the book, and the Lord spoke to me sitting at the computer, He says, "That was an angel." I went, "Oh my God, that was an angel!" And I picked up a hitchhiker at the Virginia state line,
Mm-hmm.
and the person was standing under the sign that says "Welcome to Virginia," and the Lord said, "Pick him up." And I pulled over, and He opened the door, and I said, "Where you headed?" And He said, "Charlotte, North Carolina." How ironic! I only live 30 miles south of Charlotte. And I said, "Well, get in." And then he got in, and then We drove a little bit, and then I asked him, I said, "Do you have driver's license?" And he says, "Yes." I said, "Can I see them?" And then he showed me his driver's license. So then, I don't know why, but I asked him, "Would you like to drive?" And he was like, "You don't mind?" He didn't like, "Oh my God." He just said, he said, "You don't mind?" I said, "No." And
Mm-hmm.
so I pulled over. Now I just picked this gentleman up,
Mm-hmm.
just picked him up 5 minutes earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull over. He got under the steering wheel and he drove all the way to Charlotte, North Carolina. And I passed out. I had been to sleep in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I just got transferred from Japan back to South Carolina. And I passed out. And when he got to Charlotte, he touched me on the shoulder and he says, "We're here." And I'm like, "Where?" And I looked around and we was on Interstate 85 in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he just got out of the truck and just started walking down the interstate. So I didn't know at that point that that was an angel that had saved my life. But then down the road, when I was writing the book, the Lord shared with me, He said that was an angel. And I think the book has angels all through it. It has one. It's a chapter called "The Angel in the Desert." That we have an angel that came and rescued us. So this book is going to enlighten you about a lot of things in your life that you're going to find out after reading the book, that you've had angels that has rescued you and you didn't even know it
Mm-hmm.
until this book is going to bring to your remembrance. You know what? That was an angel. It wasn't it. They come in a human flesh, but God has angels throughout the world that is saving us from all kind of things that that we never dreamed of, and that is happening in our lives today. Just yesterday, a friend of mine's daughter was graduating, and they had sent me an invitation. And then her daughter, she sent me a Facebook message that her daughter forgot to put the stamp on the invitation, so I'm not going to be getting it. But she was inviting me. But guess what? I got the invitation, and I was just sharing with my brother a little while ago. I was like, I got an invitation that didn't have a stamp on it. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Wait a minute, hold on." The mail there. So I said, "I never seen anything like this." I was like, "Hold on." He said, "That was God." I said, "It had to be because it doesn't even have." And when I looked at it, she was right. There's no stamp on it, but it has traveled through the mail, through the system, and have arrived to my address. And that came to the mail yesterday. And I said, "Okay, God, He is still working miracles in my life, even today."
I see. I think that's never coincidental, right? It's God's will. I believe so. Wow. Well,
Wow.
see, guys, you hear that? Actually, it's having commotion here in our studios here, Reverend Kavan, because they are also having their own struggles in life. They would want to pull a line up with you in getting your attention. So I think you're gonna be expecting a lot of calls from the
Okay.
office mates here in Fox Press Studios. So get in line, guys. I am the prioritized client here. So get off my back. Okay. So now it's leading us to second to the final questions. In your view, Reverend, what role do books and personal narratives play in helping communities become more inclusive and empathetic?
uh, I really believe that if you were to, and over my life, over all the experiences that I've had, I did 24 years in the Marines, I did 27 years in law enforcement. I've been in the ministry now. I've been a licensed minister, ordained pastor for 13 years, and the biggest thing is reading. The biggest thing to attain more knowledge about everything is reading. And if you were to pick up a book and read, what the reading does for you, it just makes you a better person
Mm-hmm.
because it's telling stories about people's different lives and things in the Bible and things in the world. And if the young people read more, they will be better test takers. If they read more, they'll be more patient. If they read more, they will understand greater. If they read more, they would love one another. If they read more, they would care for one another. If they read more, they would respect one another. And I just think when you start putting something on paper and someone takes the time to actually put it on paper and gives you an opportunity to make a decision in your reading. But I've had so many people have called me and wrote to me about, you know what, I feel that same way about my father that you feel about your father. You know what, I've had some of those experiences with angels in my life. You know what, I'm just so happy that this is one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And so when I get those kind of reviews from people, it just makes me so happy that God chose me to be a messenger. God chose me to be a vehicle. God chose me to tell the world that He is still in the miracle working business, and there's nothing you can do about it. If God want to create a miracle in your life, He's going to create that miracle. God ain't going to ask for your permission to create a miracle for you.
Mhm.
God is going to do it. And at the same time, what He shared with me more important than anything is that a miracle does not have an expiration date. There
Very.
are miracles forever.
Of course, I do believe in that saying that miracles don't have any expiration dates. In fact, I'm waiting for my miracle here, even though I have, you know, I might not have my hair falling out yet, but I'm still waiting for that miracle to really like to come and, give me a day that it won't let me see any hair falling out. So, Reverend Kevan here, I am really thankful for, the privilege and for, the time that you've taken. Reverend Kevan here, guys, I shall say he has been always busy and getting in touch in and out with different school outreach programs. He do have his specific church organization. He do hospital visits. So, to those viewers and listeners, yes, he is also giving um, healing prayers, and do visit, hospital visits. So, I think you might get in touch with us if you would want Reverend Kevan L. Waiters, the author of Brother to Brother, to take a visit and at least for a holistic attention to those in need. So, for our final question now, if you, Reverend Kavan, could encourage readers to embrace one principle of inclusivity after reading Brother to Brother, what would it be?
It would be to love one another. Also, be willing to give. Uh, God says it's best to give than to receive. And if you're willing to give, no matter what it may be, whether it's your time, whether it's an organ, whether it's your love, whether it's your patience, or if it's just your understanding and giving someone an opportunity to maybe cry on your shoulder. Um, I think if you can take away from that from the book, I think all those elements are in it, and if you can take away that alone itself, I think I think the message that God wants us to give to the world, I think God would say, and He has said to me, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Well done." And that's what I would leave with my readers, that you want God to tell you those things. Well done, my good and faithful servant. Well done.
Well, I love everything and every insights that Reverend Kavan Waiters has shared to us in this episode, all about, again, inclusivity, empathy, and universal language of the family. So, I would also lead them to encourage with empathy, love one another. And if we can really do that, I truly believe we can build stronger families, stronger communities, and a better world. So, Reverend Waiters, thank you so much for sharing not only your family's story, but also these powerful insights about empathy, belonging, and our shared humanity. Brother to Brother is clearly more than a memoir, it's an invitation to see ourselves in one another. Thank you so much for joining us today. And to those readers and viewers listening right now, stay tuned. Kindly check on Reverend Kevan Waiters on Amazon and online bookstores, Barnes and Noble. And in the future, we will be creating a channel under Reverend Kevan L. Waiters for the progress of his book and his upcoming shows. Thank you so much again, Reverend Waiters.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Margot. I am blessed, honored, and it's a privilege to be with the Fox channel. It is great. You have been a great inspiration for me, and I love you all. And I just continue that God may continue to bless you all for whatever your endeavors be. Let God will be done.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure and a blessing as well to distribute and to be part of this conversation. Thank you so much. So this is Margot, and this is the week's topic right now with Fox Press Voices. Till next time.